Our hearts are filled with gratitude for what you have done in and through our lives throughout this year. You have brought us to the last Sunday of this year, when many have started this year but could not see this day. They were taken away from this world, or they are still bedridden. But we thank you that it is not that we have done something good. You have kept us alive in the land of living. All what we can say is, along with Apostle Paul, I am what I am because of the grace of God. And we acknowledge as a family, as individual, and as the body of Christ today, we do not know how many days that you would give to us, maybe one more new year or one more new day. But we pray that you will help us again to live for you and for your glory. As we come before your word, we ask you to speak to us and speak to our hearts in person, that we will be able to take few moments to see what we are, what we were in 2015 before your presence. Speak to us from the life of Daniel. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. I am really grateful to the pastor and the pastoral committee and the church for inviting me to be here, especially for the Christmas service. And I was very much impressed to see, especially the evening service on 25th, where thousands of people were coming, and they were even standing outside of the road. And I have never seen such a large number of gathering where people just come without giving any invitation in any church. I have been to so many mainline churches like CNI, Methodist, and having large congregations in Nagpur and Raipur and all, but it's all like the get-together of the members who are there. So it's like the club, people who are enrolled, they come, enjoy and go. But your church is different. And after that, I was thinking so much, and I was talking with your secretary and the pastor here, and I was telling that now you have a greater role to play, all of you, both the adults and the young, because we should not expect only the numerical growth. We also should be very careful to make sure people grow individually, so that, just for the sake of gathering you have people. That should not be. So you should come up with solutions how people can be built up. God has blessed this church with talents. Everyone who says he is a believer, according to the Bible, he has or she has a talent. That means there is a role for you to play within the body of Christ, and you should be serious about it. And the church should think how they can expand this so that along with the numerical growth, every individual will grow into the stature of the Lord, as Paul calls that in the book of Ephesians chapter 4. And with having few minutes left before us, Christmas is over, still not the New Year. But again, I am not here to say all of us will probably live to see the New Year, and I don't have the guarantee of my own life. Well, that's the kind of world we live in. In the book of Ephesians chapter 5, it says that redeeming the time because the days are evil. That's a fact anywhere you turn around. But as we are heading towards a new year, if the Lord would add that to us in His grace, it is essential that we take a few seconds every day and pause for a moment and look back as to what extent we were able to maintain the resolutions that we made back the beginning of the first day in this year. So I'd like to talk to you from the book of Daniel chapter 6, which is a very, very familiar story. And I'm sure there is no one who is being seated here without having heard or read this passage, which talks about Daniel in and out of the lion's den. A very common story. And it's a process of his spiritual journey. But when you come to the first 10 verses of Daniel chapter 6, based on which I have entitled my message as Making Lasting Resolutions in Life. Making lasting resolutions. Resolutions that stands. Now, I don't know if one of you are sitting here who is already 90. By the time you meet Daniel in the 6th chapter, he has already completed 70 plus years as a politician, serving under 5 different kings under the Babylonian Empire, and God made a performance appraisal of this great man. Chapter 5 and 6 of Daniel contain that. In the 5th chapter of Daniel, verse 27, God made a performance appraisal of a king called Belshazzar, who was the son of Nabonidus. And God had only one thing to tell towards that man. In verse 27, it says, take hail, as Daniel was interpreting, it says, thou art weighed in the balances and art found wanting. He did not reach to the place which God had expected him to reach, so instead of promotion, not just demotion, it was destruction. Then begins a new kingdom in the 6th chapter, the Medo-Persians, who have conquered the Babylonian Empire at the end of chapter 5, a kingdom that stood for 70 long years. But when you meet Daniel in chapter 1, verse 8, he was like, I'm not sure if somebody is here with 17 or 18 years of old. When he was a very young boy, he was taken away from his family, away from his church, from Jerusalem as a captive to the land of Babylon. And that day he made a resolution. In chapter 1 verse 8 of Daniel, we read like this. Daniel, of course, along with his friends, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, he made a resolution in his heart that he will not defile himself by any means. Like any of us who make that, the 31st night, we make an apology, then we quickly make a new resolution. So let's assume something similar to that. Daniel said, whether my parents are there with me or not, whether my church pastor is with me or not, but I have purposed in my heart, this is what I am going to be. Now, we are meeting him in the 6th chapter after almost 70 plus years. That means Daniel is almost 90 plus years by now. Still standing with the same resolution. So just before he is going to get away from this world, God is going to use, of course this is, I don't know based on which HR policy, these type of appraisals are made. No company will accept this, because normally the employer will appraise the employee, right? And that is also annual. But here it's going ulta, it's exactly going the other way around. Daniel was second to the king, and his subordinates are going to make the performance appraisal of Daniel. Can you imagine if that would happen to your office? I don't know whether you will serve a memo or you will sue the company. But somehow God was bringing Daniel to that situation And here is one godly man assessed by some 122 ungodly associates who had been through along with Daniel for so many years by now, and they began assessing Daniel in 4 areas of his life, which all of us are responsible for. I would like to quickly set those 4 areas of our lives that God expects us to assess once again this morning as to where do we stand as we have come to the end of 2015. If the Lord puts us through this 4-fold test, what would be the testimony? Forget about the testimony from what your ungodly friend will tell about you, what God will tell about you. The first thing, look with me. Of course, this was done by the employer, by the way, the first test. Verse 3. Then this Daniel, okay, let me read the verse 2 also, verses 1 and 2 also, as it gives the background. It says, Daniel chapter 6 verses 1 and 2, it says, it pleased Darius. By the way, there was no king by name Darius. Darius, or Darius you call it, as a title like Herod or Pharaoh. It is a reference to King Cyrus. Back in the book of Esther, Nehemiah, and Ezra, you find him. So, this king decided to set over the kingdom 120 princes, which should be over the whole kingdom, and over these 2 presidents, of whom Daniel was first. That means he was second to the king, and all others are going to be his subordinates, that the princes might give accounts unto them, so that Daniel could make the appraisal of them, not the other way around. But however, verse 3, then this Daniel was preferred above the presidents and princes because an excellent spirit was in him. The first appraisal was about his inner life. The word excellent spirit, it's not a reference to the Holy Spirit, as in the English Bible you will find the small s is used. It's a reference to his own spirit. But in the Aramic Bible, book of Daniel was written in Aramic, except a few parts in Hebrew. In the Aramic, it means it's a reference to a person's attitude. So the first appraisal of Daniel was on his attitude. A very important thing. If there is one problem that every human being has, you know what is that? One single problem? It's not the associates around him. It's not the church or the church pastors, or it's not the husband or wife. All those will become the secondary problem if the main problem, which is the attitude problem, is addressed. So God digs down from there. As far as Daniel was concerned, for the last 70 years, ever since he made that resolution, he was excellent in his attitude. You know, if you happen to work with a boss for an year, and at the end of the year, your performance appraisal is made, and finally the board of directors join before they got to promote you. So they will say, how is his work performance? Excellent. How is his punctuality? He is always on time, though he goes probably before time. So the boss finally asks, so should we give him promotion? Then one of the board of the directors will say, he is good. I agree 100%. But you know, sir, his attitude toward this company is what? I personally, I have no problem promoting him, but personally I will give only 99%. But look at a man, a politician by the way, a prime minister, if we can use the title for him in the modern language. A man who will have all the attitude problem. But this man, when God began to assess him and God says he has, now this is a word that comes from the king, by the way. If Daniel warned, he had lived under Nebuchadnezzar, he had lived under Belshazzar, who have learned, if he want, all the cruelty and crookedness to put down the king and make himself as the king, if he were chose to do. But the king was very much impressed, and he says he is excellent in his attitude. Second one, verse 4. So, in his inner life, Daniel was excellent. The second goes to his personal life. Verse 4. It says, then the presidents and princes sought to find occasion against Daniel concerning the kingdom. But they could find none occasion nor fault, for as much as he was faithful. So first it was his inner life, which refers to his attitude. Now it refers to his personal life, which refers to his relationship with the other associates. It could be with his wife, it could be with his children, it could be with his relative. It's that. It simply says in one single word that Daniel was faithful. The famous Greek philosopher Aristotle, the teacher of Alexander the Great, was asked a question once: what a man could gain by uttering falsehood? And he replied, Aristotle replied, not to be credited when he shall tell the truth. Someone by name Macaulay, he made a statement like this: the measure of a man's real character is what he would do if he knew he would never be found out. It says, you see, and by the way, now the assessment began by the ungodly associates. You know what intention in mind? Not for the promotion of Daniel, not even for the demotion of Daniel, it was for killing him. Now imagine, with that mindset, if you have a team of people to appraise somebody, what would be their feedback? Now with that in mind only, they have gathered more information to the king, more information to the staff on whom they are making the appraisal, and now they are coming up with certain inexcusable things. And one of which was about the personal performance of Daniel, personal life of Daniel. It says in one word, he was faithful. Let me quickly illustrate what do I mean by. A few years back, a young man and a woman went to buy some fried chicken to a hotel. They went and gave the order, they got the packet, came to a park to enjoy. After they reached the park, they opened the packet, and lo and behold, it was not fried chicken, it was the money pack. By mistake, the owner handed over the money pack instead of chicken. They paused for a moment and said, let's do this. Let's go back and give it. Why should we keep this? So both of them went, and the hotel owner was shocked to see this because it was some huge sum of money. And the hotel owner was so much impressed, and he said, I really appreciate you, young man and woman, but I also would like to award you, and the award is going to be, I'm going to call the media, so that everyone in your village, everyone in this city will know we have two young, faithful people. So please stick around, I'm going to call. And the young man was very reluctant, saying that, quickly he started talking the spiritual languages, saying that, it's my obligation, it's my duty, I did not do any big thing by handing over your own money. All such big topic he began to speak, but the owner said, it's fine, I'm going to call the media. But the young man was still insisting. And finally the hotel owner got irritated and he told me, what is your problem? The young man, with much reluctance, he said, sir, I am a married man, but the woman who is with me is not my wife. Daniel was faithful. If he would have preferred a live-in relationship, neither his parents nor the priest back in Jerusalem will ever come to know. Whether to have premarital sex or extramarital sex, whatever the term you use it, if Daniel wants, he can use it and cover it, being second to the king. Not even one individual is going to come to know that. But you should know, not only God was watching over him, even the ungodly associates were watching over him very carefully in order to plot and kill him. But now, when they started analyzing his life and the testimony they gave, it says, Daniel was faithful. Look at the very interesting reading in verse 4. Then the presidents and princes sought to find an occasion against Daniel and his kingdom, but they could find none. What a great testimony at the end of his life. A resolution which he made back 70 years in chapter 1, that I will never defile myself, and he still stands for that. Third, verse 4 again, in his professional life. First in his inner life, then his personal life, but spirituality does not end there. It takes you to the office also. For many people, anybody can be very spiritual inside the church. Once they are here, they can sing well, they can clap, they can raise their hand and say hallelujah. By the way, I have not developed motivating people to say hallelujah. I am sorry for that. I don't know, it does not come, by the way. So we can do all those things. But your godliness will be really assessed from Monday to Saturday in your workplace. Now look at what was his performance there. Verse 4. Let me read the last part of verse 4. For as much as he was faithful, listen, neither was there any error, which is a sin of commission, nor any fault, or in other translation, and I think in the NIV it says, nor any corruption, which is the sin of commission. One is the sin of omission, other is the sin of commission. One, you do it knowingly. One, you do it not because you do not know you should do, rather you don't want to do it. Two words that describes a politician here. A long-standing politician, 70 plus years in the same field. Only two words from these ungodly associates to say, no error, no corruption. He was faithful in his work. He was faithful in his inner life, in his attitude. He was faithful in his personal life, and now he is going to be faithful in his professional life. What a testimony. We can all recall what the year it used to be. Whatever the job you are in, Maybe one of you could own your own company, you could be a boss, or you could be a servant. Before God, God looks at your work as your ministry field. God has placed you as a minister, as a light unto the nation in the midst of ungodly people. Daniel understood that fact. Though only 4 people were godly in that kingdom, though there are many, but within the court palace, every day he has to confront a group of idol-worshipping people, both in the kingdom of Persia and in the kingdom of Babylon. Every day he has to confront corruption, cruelty. The Babylonian kings were known for their cruelty. But in the midst of that, whatever the responsibility was handed over to Daniel, at the end of the day, no error in his work, even at the age of 90. No fault in his performance. Because he was not working for promotion, he was working for the Lord. I always tell this to my church people. If you cannot remain faithful to your immediate boss on this earth, no matter whether he's a Christian or non-Christian, you can never remain faithful to God, who is invisible. Faithfulness in his work. And finally and quickly, spiritual life. Verse 10. Verse 10. Integrity in his attitude, integrity in his personal life, integrity in his professional life, and finally integrity in his own spiritual life. The first one is his responsibility toward himself. The second one is his responsibility toward others. The third one is his responsibility to his associates outside the church. And finally, his responsibility toward God. So all of us have this. I have a responsibility toward myself to make sure I brush my teeth every day, not for the sake of you. But you will find out if I did not do that. There is a responsibility toward my family, my associate, my close friends. There is a responsibility to my immediate boss, whether he is absent or present. You know, in front of boss, anybody can be a very good, hard worker, even though the other time they will be hardly working. Finally, there is a responsibility to God. The final accountability comes about my attitude, about my relationship with my friends and my family, my wife, my husband, my children, and my attitude toward the boss. And finally, at the end of the day, God brings you there and asks, did you stand by the resolution which you made? Look at Daniel. And what was his spiritual life? Let me read quickly, just 2 more minutes. Verse 10. Now when Daniel knew that the writing was signed, he went into his house, and his windows being opened in his chamber toward Jerusalem, he kneeled upon his knees 3 times a day and prayed and gave thanks before his God. Look at the last 3 words. As he did any other time. So here I want to say, Daniel had a consistent walking with God. The spiritual life of Daniel was not circumstance motivated. He had all the reason to be spiritual at this chapter. You know why? This is going to be the last day in his life. The decree is issued that he is going to be thrown into the lion's den for not compromising. And he is convinced, and the king is going to get trouble, but however, king cannot alter his word because that's the rule of the Medo-Persian. But nothing was shocking Daniel. As usual, that's the word I love. Well, when you know You got a month notice, the boss is going to fire you, you become suddenly spiritual, right? You say that next 30 days I'm going to fast. For what? Anybody can do that. Even Jezebel, when she wanted to kill somebody, you know what she declared? She declared a fast. And many times that's what our spiritual life is. We are busy. We have no time to pray. We have no time to read Bible. But definitely we get time to watch 2 movies together. I teach in a seminary also, so I teach Bible study method, how to study Bible. So one of the students was asking how to complete the Bible easily. So I said, I took so many examples and I said, see, you can actually complete the Bible if you read regularly in 2 months. One time you can complete. Forget about 1 year. I said, see, every day if you stop watching one movie which takes 3 hours, or if you just put a full stop for the 7 serials that come from 1 o'clock, it is very easy. A consistent, ongoing walk with the Lord. As I close, let me read these 3 points which I have. Somebody said like this: you will seldom get what you deserve from people, so don't expect it. Anyone who works in the office, you will know that. You will always get what is best from God, so don't doubt it. But your ability to handle both is directly related to the consistency of your walk with the Lord. Otherwise, your life will become a misery. As long as your life is going with the Lord, the Bible does not promise prosperity. The Bible does not promise that your life is going to be made of bed of roses. No, it does not say anywhere. If Daniel could face this, if Apostle Paul could face this with a thorn in his flesh, life is filled with that moment. And 2016, if the Lord gives, it is going to be the same. Even though we say, I wish you all, what do you say, that happy and prosperous and blessed new year, that is simply flattery. But within our hearts we know the problem which I faced in 2015 is going to continue, because my sickness, the doctor told me, is going to continue with me. The financial struggle which I faced is still there, because the bank wala is calling me every day. It is going to continue. Simply because you accepted Christ. Of course, I'm not saying God cannot do a miracle for you, but it does not happen always practically. Things will be as it is. The children who never listen at all, you are not going to kill them anyway in 2016. All will go as it is. All will go as it is. But in the midst of that, there is only one secret that preserved Daniel in the midst of such a challenging situation. When the decree is issued, he was as usual as in his spiritual life daily. As I close my words, and this, we have come to the end of this year. I don't know what all the resolutions you have made, what number of resolutions you were able to implement it in your life. Forget about all. But one thing, let me remind you. If the Lord make an assessment of my life, why should I talk about you? Take it individually. If the Lord make an assessment of my life, in regard to my attitude, in regard to my attitude toward my co-brothers and sisters, within the family and outside the family, in regard to the work that God has trusted me and has given me, believing that He will do His best, and in regard to my spiritual walk with Him, without giving any prior notice about this performance appraisal, suddenly they began to make, and this was a result, which deserve only promotion. But that's again not going to happen. Again, that's not going to happen. But still, all what we can say with Daniel is, he was a man who stood in his resolution, which he made long years ago. But very sad, we are not able to maintain even a resolution we made just about 12 months before. May the Lord give us this attitude, not for the sake of pleasing somebody, but the sake of pleasing and living for God and for His good purpose, in case if we get to see one more year. May the Lord enable us to stand for Him, so that we will serve Him wherever God has placed us. Thank you once again. May the Lord bless all of you.